Hey everyone, I wanted to do a follow-up video after yesterday's amazing stream that we did with the guys on Pro Synth Network. I needed to clear up a few things, and also there were a few things that we kind of glossed over and a couple of things that I forgot to mention in the stream. It all went really quick. Before I do that, obviously I woke up to a lot of support tickets this morning. Because the code had expired this morning, a lot of support tickets with people wanting to use the code. My bad, you know, I guess we've got time zones and not everybody had seen the live stream and then subsequently got in touch. So I've kept the coupon code, which is ProSynth, which gets you a little discount on the pre-order. I've extended that. That will finally end on Monday morning now, so you've got a couple of days. There'll be no exceptions after Monday. That coupon will be deleted from then. So also what I wanted to just do, because that was a very long form stream, just go over some of the details of the Caladan and maybe field a couple of those questions that have been asked today and yesterday on the Facebook page. I guess some stuff wasn't fully made clear enough, so I'm going to attempt to go over that. What I'll just really quickly do is go over the user interface a bit more and the build of the Caladan. Now obviously the build of it is pretty much exactly the same as the S2400, so if you're an owner of the S2400 you already know the materials and the weight of the thing is very heavy. The knobs are different on this. These are all solid milled aluminium, really weighty, nice knobs. I know that's not something that you can always see in a picture. RGB LED rings around all those knobs that will be able to show you multiple positions at the same time of different knobs. For instance, in our oscillator section here, the original Parva card has 3 oscillators. So you can press, in the oscillator section, you can press select and that will cycle through however many oscillators are on that particular card or voice that you're using. And you can show the positions of each one of those oscillators, for example, with a different color, a different dot around the ring. So it just gives you an at-a-glance look at what your condition is. So you've got 4 LEDs, 4 OLED screens behind here, much the same as the Parva, that give you visual information as to what's going on with your voice. Now across the top, and we didn't really go over much of this, we've got these 4 assignable buttons, and we can call these, you know, soft pots or whatever you like, as the functions of these can change depending on what sort of view or mode you're in. What I should also say is all of the pots have push buttons. Now they might not all need functions, but they're there for our development purposes at least. We might find uses for these. Similarly, all the pots across the top, they all have integrated push buttons. And then we've got another further 4 soft buttons underneath each one of these pots for various uses. One of the main ones is probably going to be controlling of DSP effects functions. So the intention is with the stock cards and other cards that we produce, we're going to be including the FV1 chip, which is a really powerful little DSP chip that's small enough so that we can fit it on each of the cards. Now, there's a really good programming interface and loads of different algorithms that can be used on those FV1 chips. They really do sound, with clever programming, they really do sound very good. And they will be included on the cards. So, for instance, these pots are going to come in handy for controlling the DSP functions on those cards. And they're going to give you your sort of bread and butter effects, like your reverbs and choruses and delays and stuff like that. So the cards will have those out of the box. There isn't necessarily going to be a built-in DSP card like there is for the S2400 or an add-on DSP card for this synth. There just simply won't be the room. So moving on, across this top row here, we've got our parts. Now, Caladan is an 8-part multi-timbral synth. So you've got instant access to each of the 8 parts. And of course, when you press that, you're going to be changing focus to that part using this screen, and all of the screens here will shift to bring which part you want to work with into focus. And then following on from that, we've got load and save for multi. Now, of course, if you've got a bunch of different patches, and everything's set up on each one of these different parts, you're going to want to save that whole entire scene of the synth. So there's quick access to load and save for your multis there. You'll also be able to press a part there, and then you'll have a menu in here, much as we do on the S2400, so that you'll be able to browse patches and all of that good stuff. I'll have to put my glasses on a minute because I can't read the rest of it very easily. We've also got patch, which just brings you straight into the patch menu. We've got the DSP button there, which is going to take you into the DSP functions and menus pertaining to whichever part you're selected on. Mod matrix, so that'll bring up instant access to all of your modulation routing possibilities. ARP is for arpeggiator. That shouldn't really need too much explanation. CV and gate, which I'll get back to in a minute. And preview, so there's a quick preview button just to preview a patch. Obviously the Caladan doesn't have a keyboard, and if you're not necessarily right next to one, you want to go by pressing that button. And then these buttons around flanking the OLED, instant access to MIDI functions, settings, and we've got back, enter, and an encoder. And the encoder also, as the S2400 does, has an integrated push button. I really just wanted to break out a lot of the user interface so that rather than looking through menus for certain functions, you've got instant access with a button to it. Just makes it a lot more fluid for use. Now, some of the stuff that I neglected to go through in the stream yesterday. So if we look at the back of the unit, we've got mains power in. This is universal mains power, so that goes from anywhere from 100 to 250 volts AC. So it shouldn't matter where you are in the world, you'll still be able to power it, and you won't be looking for a DC power adapter. We've got USB device. Now, this is one of the things I neglected to mention in the stream. Inside the Caladan, we digitize the outputs of all of the card slots. So that gets transformed into this class compliant MIDI and audio. So much the same as the S2400, where you can output all of your audio channels to USB and into your DAW, the Caladan also does the same. So it digitizes, it captures the audio from all the slots as well. So if you've got an purely analog card that's installed in the machine, that's getting digitized inside the Caladan, added to an audio stream, and it's being spat out of the USB device port. Quite a big one that I really forgot to mention, so I apologize for that. We've also got USB host, so that is obviously for plugging in your USB MIDI controllers or basically whatever is class compliant MIDI. There may be other uses for it that we haven't thought about just yet, but that's there. And then you can probably see the running theme here where that is, a lot of this hardware is shared with the S2400. Moving on, we have clock in and clock out for your pulses and stuff like that, or syncing up some other gear. Obviously that is the same as the S2400. And then we've also got 4 completely independent gate and CV inputs. So each one of these is a TRS input, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you've got a modular rig or something like that and you want to control separate voices or separate parts, you could be able to control up to 4 of those parts using the integrated CV and gate connections that we've got here. Moving on to the MIDI ports, standard fare there, MIDI in, out and through. And then we get to the output jacks. Now, we've currently got master, I should actually rename that to main, mix, left and right, sub mix, left and right, and then we've got 8 stereo individual outputs. Now, that is subject to change at the moment, depending on how it goes with this current prototype development and audio routing. We may make the decision to have 8 mono outputs but have them balanced, or stick with 8 stereo outputs that are unbalanced. We can't really do both. We'll give more about that as we move through the prototype development stages. I will talk a little bit more about the front of the user interface. So obviously this is the oscillator section. You can press a select button to cycle through however many oscillators you've got in the current part that you're using, and some of the more popular things that you're probably going to want to press. So, you know, oscillator type will take you through the different waveforms, and key tracking and sync, and so on and so on. Here we got range, fine, the waveform, glide, and level. In our envelope section, and if we're talking about the stock Parva cards that will be shipping with the machine, or the remixed Parva cards, if you like, there's 4 envelopes per card, 3 oscillators per card, and 4 envelopes. We got here envelope select, looping of the envelopes, destination where you want to send that particular envelope to, key tracking, and then we've got attack, decay, sustain, release, and mount. Moving on, we got LFO, and the stock Parva cards have 4 LFOs again. So we've got select, we've got MIDI, I can't remember what that's for, but it's part of the original Parva design. Key sync and bipolar. We've got the waveform type, the rate, depth, and delay, sorry. And then onto the VCF. Now the stock VCF, there's 2 filters per card in the original. You can choose which type, selecting which filter you're looking at, what type you want the filter to be, and patch for patching the filter to different places. We've got cutoff, resonance, key amount, and FM for frequency modulation of the filters. So I just wanted to give you that quick overview of some of the stuff that I didn't go over in yesterday's stream. As I said, the coupon code has been extended to keep going until Monday morning. You can go to islainstruments.com and place your pre-order. And I think that just about covers it. I'm sure there's going to be more questions. There were some questions. People asked about the cards. Now, the cards that the unit is going to ship with are basically an improved and sort of remixed version of the original Parva voice cards. As I said, they were 3 DCO, 4 envelope, 4 LFO, with 2 built-in filters. One of those was based off the MS-20, and the other one was based from the SEM, I believe, off the top of my head. There are 40 or so modulation destinations between the envelopes and the LFOs, so it had really, really good modulation capabilities. There are audio demos of how those cards sounded on the pre-order page. You can scroll down and listen to some of the original Parva demos. Those cards are essentially going to sound the same. There were some bugs per se that people had mentioned about the original Parva voices, and much of that was down really to the slightly underpowered microcontroller CPU that was on each one of those cards. We've changed the processor architecture, and we're using different DACs to control the control voltages on those cards, because they're essentially analog synth cards. So the bugs that some people had expressed, you know, at super fast rates on LFOs and things like that, the cards sometimes went a little bit wonky. So that will be something that's not an issue because of the processor technology and the different DACs that we're going to be using. Obviously, the other cards that we're working on at launch are the SEM card and the OPL3, a dual OPL3, which was a Yamaha FM chip that if you listened to 90s video games on PCs, they had a built-in FM, basically an FM synth on a chip. Those are the 2 cards we're aiming for at release. And we've also been talking to the fabulous Paula Maddox of Modal Instruments fame. She created some of those amazing synths for Modal, and she has a design that she feels will be a great fit for Caladan. So there's that card to look forward to as well, hopefully. And the other thing is, obviously, out of the box, without any voice cards installed, the Caladan has an internal module that is capable of replaying multi-sampled, multi-layered sample instruments. This is something that we got requested a lot on the S2400, and although it made perfect sense, the machine, we've really pushed the machine to its limits. And while there are other things that we'd like to introduce on the machine, being able to replay multi-samples and the like would either steal a lot of the voices or just maybe be a bit too much for it to handle. So that functionality is obviously being built into the Caladan. Out of the box, it should be, the aim is for it to be able to play back SFZ and sound fonts. But we are leaning towards changing that up a little bit, taking the weight off of the CPU that's built into Caladan for taking care of the multi-sample playback, and actually replacing that section with a small ARM, basically separate computer on a board. And because of the developments that we've been doing with our DSP upgrade that loads VST plugins for the S2400, we should be able to miniaturize that a little bit, use a slightly lesser powered version of that Linux computer, and put that onto a board that will live in here. And that should also then give us the opportunity to be able to use virtual instruments. So above just being able to do multi-sample playback with your sound fonts and your SFZs, it'll probably be able to load at least one VST instrument. I use the term VST, I mean plug-in instrument. On the Linux ARM platform, which is what this will be based on, has a lot of different sort of plug-in formats. There's VST, but there's LV2, and there's a fantastic new format called Clap, which is likely the direction we'll be going, as it seems a lot of the plug-in industry in the near future is going to be moving in that direction. Inside the machine, now these knobs aren't tightened up at the moment, so I don't want them to fall off again, so I don't want to turn the machine all the way back. And bear in mind, remember, this is a development machine. You should be able to see in the back here, these are the small expansion slots, and that's where the room is for the 8 cards to fit. And if you use your eagle eyes there, you can see an SD card socket there. That is currently just got some sound fonts installed on it. But this has a trapdoor panel that sits there, so when you're adding and removing cards or changing stuff up, there'll just be a couple of screws to remove here, as opposed to taking the whole machine apart. So I think that addresses most of the questions that I was asked. No, there were more, as they're coming back to me. There was a lot of people have said they were a bit confused as to how many voices are on each card. Now, as I said in the interview, it really depends on what the card is. For instance, as I said, the OPL3 card, having 2 OPL3 chips on board, potentially I think has something up to 56 voices, 56 operator voices. That's that particular digital card. The stock original Parva analog voice cards had a single voice. So a fully populated 8-voice Parva had 8 cards. We may or may not be able to squeeze more than one voice onto a card now. The reasons being is that this machine is a bit bigger, so we can make the cards bigger. And we may also be able to make those cards with components on both sides of the board. If we can do that, we might be able to increase the voice count of each card. Don't get me wrong, it's my full intention and dream to have an Oberheim 16 voice. So if we can pull that off with the SEMs, you know, if we can get 2 voices on a card, 2 SEM voices on a card, we've essentially then got an Oberheim 16 voice. Isn't that amazing? That would be lovely. My dream. Anyway, so yeah, to directly answer that question, we don't yet know if the stock voice cards will be 1 or 2 voice. Obviously, there'll definitely be 1. They might be 2. In which case, for those of you that have done the pre-order with 4 cards, then you've already got 8 voices if we manage to get 2 on the thing. You know that I always shout from the rooftops about anything, so when there's grey areas and we get questioned about it, and as soon as we've got, you know, we know exactly what we can do and our limitations with the hardware, then against everyone's advice, I'll probably be telling everyone on Facebook and Instagram anyway. So if you've got any more questions, just reach out. If they're questions about you know, ideas and suggestions, please try and keep them to the forum or the Facebook group. Things do get lost on Instagram comments, but please don't use the support ticket system if you're just asking general questions about how this is going to work. It's much better for you to use the forum or the Facebook group, because support tickets are people that really need the help from us, or they might need order support and the such like. So I hope that gave you a little bit more insight as to what the machine is doing and what our intentions are with it. I know that to watch a 2.5 hour stream was a bit intense and the information was somewhat fragmented, so I just wanted to do this kind of more short form version of most of the stuff we talked about and fill you in with that. What do you think about my incidental, my cliche setup that I did here just for the video? There's nothing even in this coffee cup. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend. The coupon code ProSynth is still open until Monday morning, and you can still go and pre-order, obviously, the Caladan. Go do it, please. Thanks. Bye.